welcome back to What in the Hermeneutic. Today we are continuing our conversation. We've gone level 1 issues, level 2 issues. We're going to talk a little bit about all that. We're going to kind of recap it. Today we're moving on to level 3, where we want to know, do we care who the author was and what they were doing and why they were doing it, and how does that inform kind of our assessment of the text, understanding the meaning of the text. I mean, we'll get into, there's more specifics there. I am Paul Koch, this is my wife Cindy. This is a conversation on biblical hermeneutics. And so we're going to be following her lead as she takes us through this conversation. So continue to share, like it, all that good stuff, and let's get after it.
In every way, yet I'm still welcome in the arms of the King.
All right, so we are back at it, and we're continuing our conversation through levels of meaning. And we started with level 1, which is where I think you should start, which is the sort of the marks on the page. To what do they refer? Those kind of things. We did some level 2. That was what we talked about last time about matrixing and seeing how these words are informed, or gain meaning, or how we can interpret actions and all those kind of things, right? That's level 2. So today you're taking us to level 3.
Yes.
The most important. No, not the most important.
I don't think so. I mean, it's something that we should address.
Sure.
Because I think, again, we do this in interpretation, and we just need to know what we're doing. And, again, is just the best way to do it. So level 3, remember these levels, they're not like more in-depth meanings, but rather they're kind of like a different realm of finding meaning for each either word, passage, whatever that we come across. So this is almost like a different perspective, a different aspect, a different level of talking about what this means.
Okay.
So the third level, just because it's number 3 that we're talking about, I think is the most removed from the text.
Yes.
And that's where we kind of get into some issues here. However, we think in these terms all the time. So just again, kind of realizing what we're doing with the text. The third level is more constructing the world of the author. So if you can imagine, there is an author, there's a text, and there's a reader. Well, we know who the reader is because that's us, and we're familiar with who we are, hopefully.
Right.
And we're trying to be more familiar with who we are and what we do.
Right.
The text is this objective thing that we have received, and then there is then somebody almost behind the text, if you maybe could call it that, who has written it. And so when we start looking at the level 3 meaning, we're looking at the text and inferring things about the author.
Okay.
So, like if you were to look at the words on the page, let's say, you might be able to come to the conclusion that the author was not a very good speller. Okay, or
right.
like he's uneducated or something like that.
Sure.
Or, he wrote these particular words in this particular way, So you're taking the text and then saying something about the author himself.
Yeah.
And also then, if you look at the level 2 meanings, like what does this mean in general, you're taking information about those meanings and trying to set the author in his culture.
Okay.
And trying to figure out from the text and from the meanings what was going on in his time when he wrote it. And I think this is where we see this a lot more often, at least, I recognize it a lot more often, when, for example, we come to those hard readings with Paul.
Okay.
Talking about, let's say, women in the church or something like that.
One. Yeah,
what we've seen popularly done is to go directly to Paul's situation in life, or even his personality in some way, or like what was happening with Paul that would make him write these words. And then what are we supposed to do with them? Does it really mean anything for us?
Yes.
Because maybe he was just talking about his own thing, and it really didn't have any meaning that transfers over.
Okay.
So understand what we're doing here is we're not necessarily looking at what the text means and interpretation of the text. We're trying to construct what it means that the author wrote the text. And this is kind of like a shadowy realm to walk in because we don't really know. We have, some indications, historical, that kind of thing, what was going on at the time, which we've talked about. Those are helpful things to give flavor to the text. But to base an entire interpretation off of the level 3 meanings, what the author was doing with the text, we can't know that 100% as the reader.
Okay. Yeah, and so I remember way back when I was in seminary, this is the realm of what they would call isagogics also, right? So it's like the, when did they write it? Where were they? Who are they writing it to? Who were they as a person? Their setting, those kind of things. And I remember, I think it was actually Voelz basically said, like, you're guessing.
Yes.
Like you can infer some stuff, and it's reasonable.
It is reasonable, yeah,
but
sure.
you're at the end making kind of guesses, and so this is level 3. Then, while it informs, it shouldn't dominate, right? I mean,
Exactly.
I think that's what you're saying.
Yes,
I mean,
exactly.
I think we were talking about this the other day, and you said something like, people go here too soon.
Yes.
So they're not doing the hard work of level 1 or the hard work of level 2, and they're kind of jumping here and then using this to inform how they want to do it.
Yes.
Which, as we've said, involves a lot of guesswork.
And so it's not a terrible thing.
No.
At the end of the day, it should be used to color the translation or the interpretation, but just know what you're doing with it. Like you just said, don't go there too early. Recently, the class with Dr. Robbie that I went through, he gave a really nice, clear presentation of when you come to a text. This one was Isaiah. You do words first. Just make sure you understand what the word means in the sentence.
Vocabulary, basic stuff,
vocabulary,
right?
grammar, this was Hebrew particularly. Yeah. Secondly, you find kind of like how it fits into the rest of the book that you're reading. Mm-hmm. And then maybe, the books around it, but you're still dealing with the text. All of this is coming out of the text. This is before you go to any commentaries.
Right.
This is before you go to anything that comes from outside. After all the hard work of looking at the text and finding meaning therein, after that's done, that's when you can go refer to things like this. What was going on at the time? What possibly could the author have been referring to in history or something like that? But that was like way later in the game.
Yeah.
His argument was that a lot of people will see a word, and they'll be like, ooh, I know what that means. It meant like this in history, right? And so you see they skipped all the steps of interpreting the text and looking at the, doing it from the scriptures that we've been given.
Yeah.
And they went straight to what it might have meant at a level 3 meaning. And so again, it's kind of like it can help understand, but we're always starting with the text in front of us so that we can.
So, and for preachers, and a lot of folks that are watching this, you're a preacher. This can get dangerous, I think, in preaching if you make those kind of moves. Like you're like, oh, here's a word, and you jump outside the text. You're basically you're not preaching the text. You're preaching your understanding of a cultural norm in its day or something like that. I mean, something that's really weird when you get to that point. Like, that's not what you're called to be as a preacher. You were to preach the word. And
actually, if we were to talk about the intention of the text, maybe that's not what the text is intending to convey, all of those other things about the life of the author.
Yeah, right.
But there was a meaning to what was written.
Right.
And maybe we should focus on what that meaning is first, and then be informed by those other things.
Got it. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, pretty simple. If you've heard of like form criticism or redaction criticism, those are kind of like the modern day level 3 biblical interpretation sort of things that goes on.
What are those?
Okay, I'm just going to read it here. Yeah. So form criticism, this is from Dr. Voelz's book, What Does This Mean? He talks about this in chapter 6, the levels of meaning. And so he says it attempts to identify various units of tradition which are preserved in the scriptures by form and content, to reconstruct the situation in life, the features of everyday life of the author and his community. So, basically what we were just talking to. And then the redaction criticism, it seeks to isolate the unique theological perspective of each author by analyzing his selection and modification of source materials. So again, this is going back to the author's either thoughts or his situation in life.
Yeah.
And again, it's interesting, but I don't think we want to like base entire interpretations off of what we find at this.
This is part of the task of hermeneutics.
Yes.
It is part of it. Level 3 is a piece of it. But I think I like what you said you did with Dr. Robbie, and that you went through the and you applied all these things. And it's like when you do this, but it's actually pretty far down the line. And if you jump right to it, you're going to maybe overuse that or put more emphasis than it's necessary, something like that. And you're risking losing a lot of what is essential. Yeah. Right?
Agree.
Level 1, level 2.
Yeah. So again, all of these levels of meaning are helpful to understanding what's going on at the text. I don't think all are equal.
Okay.
But they're all helpful, and we should just recognize what we're doing when we come to the text. We're either looking at the words on the page, the meaning of the words altogether, or maybe we're trying to make a discernment about what the author meant to do with these words. Just, again, good hermeneutical information.
All right. Okay. Well, give some thought to that. Share your insights. If you got questions about that below, and we'll try to answer those. Continue to like and subscribe. Share us with others out there. We're going to keep going through this conversation of hermeneutics from my perspective, because I think it does make you, at the end of the day, better. By better, I mean a more faithful preacher, as far as preacher of the word. That these are good questions that you need to wrestle with and ask. So that's what we're doing. So continue to participate, and God bless your preaching.